But
Exactly.
yeah, it helped out, and I used it on my trip, and I even managed to figure out some way with a little bit of help from Anna to figure out how to mount the Starlink antenna inside our, our Model Y
Ins-
while moving, which was great.
Wow.
So we're looking at
That's
what do we
cool.
have, and we had like the tripod that had
Right.
like 3 suction cup mounts, and then I had like some other strapping tape, and that was like, that's it. Here, on, figure it out. You're a mechanical engineer. So she went in the back seat and figured it out, and it was working. And surprisingly, we were getting like over 150 times.
Wow.
Usually around 100 while in
Wow.
motion
That's
with it
crazy.
linked under the bottom of the Model Y. So, okay, so I'm not surprised that this thing is actually able to work in a plasma field through the
Yeah.
heater
Yeah.
reentry in outer space. So,
Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am with Dr. Scott Walter, as you know from the intro. But yeah, we are going to talk about IFT4 today. And let me see if I can bring up this guy here. So, unfortunately, it has still not been posted to YouTube, and it's hard to download stuff off of X. So, we are going to be doing this in a very awkward manner, unfortunately. But I guess we'll start with the beginning, with the launch. Anything you want to talk about with the launch? Let me see if I can make this just like a little bit
yeah,
bigger.
so we can look at this launch, and then we
Here we
can
go.
look at it from the point of view that, let's say, I and others had. Um,
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Well, here we go. So we'll watch the close up.
Surprisingly, it doesn't look very foggy there.
Yeah,
Um, Now,
not at
the thing
all.
is, if you could stop it for a second,
Right. This is
um,
slow motion, by the way, folks. So it's like
the
going
slow
real. Yeah.
motion, you'll notice those shockwaves. You notice how those shockwaves are
Right.
coming over to that tank farm there. Those are the old vertical tanks that are being removed,
Right.
and they probably aren't filled with anything. But I went
Well,
down
you
there
had
the
a
day
great picture
before.
afterwards. They look like
I had a
they've been
bore
like
for
rippled.
before and
Yeah.
after. So I was there the day before, walking around there, and pretty much you're able to walk very close to the area. There is a no trespassing
Right.
signs around there, and it's very clear where you can go. But you can get remarkably close,
Yeah.
and we could definitely see that those tanks were punished by the shockwaves of these coming out. So look
Right.
at those things and what's going on. And I'm going to show some pictures later on
Cool.
of the impact that had in the local area.
Yeah. So anyway, so again, can you hear the sound or not? The audio?
I
Because
think
it's.
so. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, and you can see shockwave, shockwave. Like those things are getting beat on here. Oh my gosh, that's cool. Going through the clouds. You can see it going through the
Hmm.
clouds. The
Hmm.
smoke vapor trail.
Yes. Yes. So
Wow.
pretty much
Woo!
there was one engine out right at the beginning. It was
Yeah,
not a RUD. It's that some parameters were not met right at the start, and it just decided to launch without that one engine, which is fine. The other
right.
thing is it goes way more vertical than the past. In the
Yes.
past, it already was kind of pushing out, but they decided because if they veered it too soon, if they started to do that roll, they were really beating up the pad to one side a bit
Yes,
too much.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
they're kind of delaying this pitch over maneuver
Right.
until much later. And yeah, I mean it rises, and once again, that is like
Woo,
a
there we go.
400-foot
So
tall
yeah, pretty
rocket, and
crazy.
look at
Oh,
the
I don't know
length
if
of
you
that
just cut
payload.
out on me or something. Whoop. Maybe, maybe not. Hello? It's gonna be that kind of night, isn't it? Oop.
Hmm.
I think you're back. Oh, it's gonna be that kind of night. Yeah. So if you could hear the audio in this, I'm not sure recording wise if you can hear it, but the kind of crunching sound is actually air cavitating. It's
Hmm.
the actual fluid dynamics of the atmosphere can't contain that much energy, so they actually begin to create these pockets in them, like sort of vacuum pockets and cavitate. So
Yes.
very very cool. But yeah, so the one engine was outside of parameters. Is that correct? So it started up, but
Yes.
then it was
Yes.
outside.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so they
Yeah.
cut it
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
So they decided, oh, there's something wrong. It's not
Right.
that there was actually an engine failure. It's just that they decided to not light it.
Right. Right. So I probably went partway through the startup and then because it looked like right at the beginning it was on, so that indicated it was at least being attempted to start. But
Yep.
anything else?
What
Yeah,
what
it's
was
a
it on? Because
definitely.
I thought it's usually pretty
Well,
late before you
yeah.
see it light up.
Here. Let's make this
So
bigger.
it's always hard because
Hold on.
everything was blocking it, and usually it's not until it cleared.
Yeah. Let me turn this way down because there's a lot of talking and stuff. But yeah. Here we go. I actually have it at just the right time. So you'll see all of them start up at the beginning, and then outside ring, all of them, and then a couple of seconds in, there it's out. So yeah.
Okay, there it's up.
So
Yep.
somewhere around 5 seconds. So they attempted to start it up at least. There was an
Yep.
attempt
Yep.
to do that. But
Yep.
absolutely. Also, it sounds a little like the Gemini. You remember the Gemini launches where it'd go whoop, like when they started,
Yeah.
because they actually had to spin up the hypergolic engines on the
Hmm.
Titans. Yeah,
Hmm.
it sounds a little like that when it screeches when it starts. So it must be the startup sequence, however that thing works. It's very screechy,
Yeah.
but
All the pumps. Yep.
yeah,
Or the
really
turbines that are
impressive
running it.
stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you can see, what are we? 11, 12. Oh, wait, nope, it's faster than that. So it's about 10 seconds to get out to clear the launch tower. And
Yeah.
as you were noting from that side view, you can really see very clearly that it stays much more vertical and then tips over after it clears. So,
Yes. Yeah. Then
yeah,
starts to head out. Heads out to
right.
sea from there.
And let's see what I guess the next thing to watch is the booster separation, because it was
Yeah,
pretty
I mean
uneventful, honestly.
oh yeah, yeah, it was just so quick compared to the last time we
Yeah,
were wanting to
exactly.
know whether it was going to work, and now it's just like
Right.
whoop, wait a minute, it was over. It happened that quickly,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
the boost back started up quite well,
Right.
and I think they had all engines operating in the boost back. I don't think there was any issues there.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this quickly before it decides it wants to crap out on us. So we're getting to the end of the booster engine burn. So you can see the one engine went out, but it's
Hmm.
still working fine. And the exciting moment is about to come in like about a minute. And it's also incredible. The speed is less than 2,000 kilometers an hour, and in one more minute, it's going to be going 5,500. It's just incredible how quickly
Yeah,
that happens.
once it starts lightening its load, it can start to move a little bit
Yeah,
quicker. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can just see, like, it's gaining speed really rapidly. I really wish they had a G-force meter on it. It'd be really cool to be able to see what the
Hmm.
G's were as it was
You have to
using. So,
check where it was, but
suggestion to SpaceX.
yeah, yeah. It's not terribly high. It might be peaking out around 3 Gs or something like that
Yeah,
of
yeah,
acceleration. So
right,
you've got about 4 Gs of thrust, but you got to remember 1 G is pulling you down. So the actual kinematic acceleration is only about 3 Gs.
right, right. 30 seconds, yeah.
And then you
So
get
again,
ready
it's gonna
here.
gain
Yeah.
about 1,500. I love how it's pitching over right now, like,
Yep.
really starting to pitch over to go. So again, orbital speed is not about going up, it's about going sideways. You wanna go sideways really fast.
Yes. Yes.
But you have to get out of the atmosphere in order to not get
That's the first thing you
drag.
try to do is that yes, you want to try to get straight up out of the atmosphere so you can start to pitch over and then start getting
Yeah,
velocity. So
right.
that's why at
Oh,
first
here we
like
go.
all the effort is to go up. And of course, at that point in the thickest part of the atmosphere, there we go.
Right. Yeah,
And
and
we,
then
we
and
get to
then
see the
we get a
separation.
hot stage, which means the second stage takes off immediately, just blasts right away from the first one,
Yes,
and
and
it's just
yeah,
beautiful.
and we have the three Raptors that are still, and then they light up the outer ring or the inner ring,
Right, right.
and so they have 13 Raptors
These guys.
in order to the boost back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the basic idea is you can never stop thrusting, as Elon says, because if you do, all of the propellant starts to slosh around and you can't
That's
feed it
one.
into
Yeah,
the
that's one of
engines.
the problems. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So in order to mitigate that, you need some sort of forward movement or ullage. So,
Right,
so that a lot of times that ullage will bid on with solid rockets that'll be strapped
right.
onto the side, and so it started to
Yeah,
free fall a little bit, and then you just light those things, and while it does that, whoop, causes
right,
all the stuff to go back down to where it's supposed to, and then you can do the startup sequence because we just
right.
assume there's like the simple on-off switch that
Right.
Ulysses,
No.
it's like,
Not
no,
at all.
there's like a whole procedure and everything has to be done. It's very, very tricky.
Right,
And then there's
right,
the other thing is that you actually lose efficiency when you're not burning, when you're not thrusting. So
right,
all that
right.
velocity, all the vertical velocity that you gained going up, you suddenly are losing a lot of it as it's starting to slow down. And now when you
Exactly.
light up the other engine, you've got to pick up the speed to get back to where you are. So
Right. This
there's
is a
basically a
beautiful shot
gravity
right
loss.
here.
Yes.
Yeah,
That looks
so
like a
this
satellite deploy.
I know,
That
isn't that beautiful?
I
It
was
it it
not expecting that.
yeah, it looks like science fiction there. So this, just FYI for people, this is the hot stage ring. So when the
Yes.
second stage lit its engines, you have to have something with a grid because there's got to be some place for the flame to go, the expanding
Yes.
gases. And so this is not going to be a permanent solution. SpaceX has been very clear about this, but for this launch, maybe the next couple launches, they're going to do this because it's not integrated. They hadn't built it into the booster
Right.
yet. And so this thing is
It
extra
was it was
heavy.
an afterthought. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's
very
something.
heavy.
Yes. So something was thrown in later, and it consists of two parts. It consists of basically a flame deflector that goes over the upper dome, because the upper dome is very exposed, which we'll see a little bit later. There's a lot of hardware and everything else. You do not want
Very
to have a
cool.
blowtorch coming down on them. And
Right.
you need to have a wall that's got holes in it. So
Right.
basically, you get some place for this hot gas to vent out. So it contains
Exactly.
those. And now that's being jettisoned there.
Yes.
And I just wasn't sure how that jettison was going to go. I had a lot of concerns of whether it would bump back into it, whether it would go, whether it would start flipping around. And the fact that it's just like so gently going out there was kind of unexpected. But again, it's like they probably figured it out. They probably modeled it and was like, oh, we've got no problem. Now, the reason why they're getting rid of it is that there's some concern that it may have impact the controls of it, because it changes the mass, the center of mass, because that's about, I think, close to 10 tons of steel there.
Right.
That's one thing. It also changes the flow going around there a little bit. And of course, it's not so much that it makes it heavier. It also makes the static margin, or the center of gravity, a little bit higher up on the vehicle, to make it a little bit more difficult to control. And the other thing is, they may not have enough fuel margins for all the additional mass that they've added to the booster, because they went from like 40, I think 24 stringers to 72. And you've got additional heat shielding and everything else. So right now it's like their margin has been eaten into. So it's like, we got to get rid of it. But yeah, the V2 version, all of this is going to be incorporated into it. So, and hopefully it'll be a little bit lighter as a result.
Yeah. So yeah, but in any case, it gave us, this is a shot that we will not see repeated very often, because once they go to the V2 boosters, we won't see this anymore. So appreciate it. Appreciate it while you have a chance. It is beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that, well, that's actually ice crystals. I don't know if they use springs to eject it, or small explosives.
That's why Elon doesn't really like explosives, which he got rid of all the explosive bolts, which was always a mainstay during the Apollo programs and everything. He's always used latches. He just prefers those. So I would not be surprised. All you need to do is have something push it away. It's probably a mechanical solution.
And by the way, at this point, the booster has already hit apogee at about 109 kilometers and starting on its way back down again.
Right.
So you can
Which
see
I
it's
think
picking
is
up
lower
velocity
than the Falcon 9. So it's a different trajectory, a little bit steeper than the Falcon 9, because most of, I think the Delta V to really get orbit is being taken over by the second stage.
Right.
So the second stage is doing a lot more work than it does on the Falcon 9.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and also, if you may or may not be, oh, actually, I think we're blocking it. Let me see if I can move us. So hold on a sec. Because you can see that there's more way down here at the little bottom part here. The LOX is almost empty, and there's a little bit more CH4. And that's because there's a header tank, there's a header tank full of oxygen. So
yes, exactly.
Of
so
O2.
inside the oxygen tank is a smaller oxygen tank, which is a reserve tank. You never get to use up that tank. And part of the reason it's there is because it's completely full. You don't have to worry about sloshing.
Right.
So that's why it's set up there. There is no header tank for the methane.
Right.
So it is sloshing around. That's why you see that there is some methane left there.
Right. And also people may be like, well, wait, if the thing's weightless, how is it going to relight the engines as it's entering? But by the time it relights for the landing burn, there's a lot of drag on the fins. So that's causing all of the propellant to fall to
exactly.
So
So it is feeling a G-force. Yes, it is decelerating because of that.
Oh, here's Here's the top that you wanted to see.
Yes, exactly. And you can see, do you want to expose that to
no,
the
you
heat
do
of
not.
it? No, you don't. You don't.
And actually, I mean, this is the
now, if you look closely, you can
with
actually see the grid fins moving in there. So occasionally going along there on the right side, occasionally you'll see the mechanism right over there.
Oh, you mean the thing that makes them move? Yes.
It makes it move. Yes, exactly. So every now and then you'll see some movement in there, and it's synced up with the movement of the grid fins.
Right. I think we can see it, maybe. I mean, it's not doing it too much at this point because it's still in space, but it's down to 38 kilometers though.
Okay, I think there's like some movement right now. You're seeing some.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit.
Right. And then just a gorgeous shot. I mean, that is beautiful there. So that's a shot upwards, of course, looking up at it, the sky. So, and then they always seem to light this thing way later than I think is going to work, because it gets down to like 1 kilometer. So notice that the speed is decreasing now. That means that there's a lot of drag, which is pulling all of the propellant downwards. So everything's good.
So you don't have a whole lot of time. Well, This isn't doing the flip maneuver like the Starship is,
Right.
because
Right.
it's coming down as a belly flop. This is coming down a little bit of an
Straight. You
angle,
can see. Yeah.
but mostly vertical. And then
Yeah.
we can see it lights up as soon as it hits the cloud deck, which is about a
And then
kilometer up.
explosion. We got a
That's
nice
a
rud
RUD.
there.
We had a
Yeah.
RUD, which we were able to confirm on the other video, which we could
Right.
probably take a
I'll
look
show
at.
that in just a second. And then we get a
Yeah.
hover and a soft touchdown in
Yes.
the ocean,
Hover.
which
Yes.
was the intention. They did not mean to try to catch this or anything like that. That was
But
beautiful.
they do want to do the hover because that's going to be important for the catch.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's go ahead. Landing burn and soft. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. Yeah. So this is another view that they it gave us just yesterday, I think. Yeah. Or 2 days ago. So
Yes.
so you can see it come. It is really kind of coming through at an angle, and then right around, I think right after the clouds. Boom! Right there.
Yep.
You see the whole thing just like adjusted.
hmm hmm And it was able to compensate for
Yeah,
that
yeah, but
being
I'm
out.
gonna turn off the sound because it's a little bit distracting, but as that happens, watch the whole thing, when it runs, it goes "Bwhoa," like that. The whole thing kind of shifts, and then it corrects itself, which is very impressive.
Yes. Yes. Now, a lot
And
of
we'll see this
people,
again
yeah,
with Starship,
yeah,
because
yeah.
Starship was very impressive.
I've seen a
So
lot of people comment that, well, because of that, they're probably not ready to catch it. They probably need to do a
right.
couple more to be able to find out what's wrong. And my overall feeling is like, no, it proved the redundancy, or
Did
what
you
I call
see that? My
yeah,
gosh, that's
the
incredible.
the redundancy of the system. They,
Redundancy.
you can lose an engine and still be able to make the landing. So it
Right.
actually proved that point more than anything else, as opposed to being
Yeah.
something that's a negative. I think
So
no,
right
you
there,
know,
explosion. And
was
it's
able.
really it actually does pendulum. You see it for a while going like this as it's getting down, because that rud really caused a major shift in the thrust
Yeah.
vectoring.
Now I have a theory
Ouch.
as to why that thing rutted,
Yeah.
and it may have been that it
Oh,
ingested
yeah.
some bubbles, and
Right.
it can demonstrate pretty simple if you just go ahead and make the screen large for a second here.
Yeah. Well, we can go right here because we'll be able to see it. Like the rud happens on the right-hand side of the
Right
ship
there,
as we're
right,
looking at it.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So let me
So,
go ahead and make it. Okay. So
so what's
demo.
happening is you've got a spin up sequence where
Right.
they've got to run everything through the turbines to get them going. And if for some reason you ingest bubbles or anything like that in there, it can cause the turbines to overspin and potentially fail. And so that's why the oxygen header tank is contained in there, is that there's no chance of any bubbles in there. But they are
Right.
still using the methane, and they're hoping to have enough. So they have, let's say, maybe about this much left. And at the bottom of the tank, you have these different manifold points, kind of like what's along here, that are the
Right.
feeders. So it's not feeding straight to the center. It's got, each one of those rings has their own. So as you can see, what happens to this if I'm coming down at an angle?
It
You know,
eventually gets empty.
eventually it could get empty there. So depending upon what the starting level of this was, obviously if this is full up to here, I don't have to worry about it, that then the manifold is completely covered. But depending upon where that was and what the angle is, and it seemed to be, it wasn't over like this, but it's not like it was just a little
Right.
bit tilted. It was kind of significantly tilted. And, notice which one is the one that went out, the one on the
Right.
top side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
And you
think
can see this right
it's
here
potentially,
as it
that
comes
was the
through.
problem.
Right.
That was potentially the problem.
So
So
just watch the right-hand side of the oh wait, you can't see this. Sorry, I'm doing
Mhm.
I should probably make it visible again before I do this.
Mhm. Now, part
Yeah,
of the problem is it may be that they get too much angle.
right there. So
Yeah.
that thing.
So
Yeah.
it may have been on the startup sequence that they definitely were too horizontal, and they need to
Mhm.
be a little bit more vertical from that. And the
Right.
reason for that is, remember, they're trying to hit a precise location. So
Right.
this thing is flying through there, and probably if it goes vertical too soon, it's going to come down too soon. So
Mhm.
they're trying to fly over, but then they're coming on down, and it's like, oh, we've got to hit the mark right now. We've got to do our
Right.
startup sequence at this point. So
Right.
either they consumed too much methane, or the angle was a bit more, which means maybe they didn't quite hit the boost back parameters what they wanted. Maybe they
Right.
needed a little bit more to get them over a bit more, so they could have come down a bit more vertical. There could be a variety of
Right.
reasons, and I'm sure they're going to be working those things out, because remember, we don't know the distance offshore. I've been looking and looking to find out,
Right.
and the closest thing I'm seeing is that it's probably something like around 20 miles offshore. And
Yeah,
you
you
notice
wouldn't
that,
want it much closer than that because you have shore craft
yeah.
and things like that. You don't want to be
Right,
messing with
right,
that
right,
stuff. So
right,
yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
something like that. But they don't announce where it is, because obviously they probably just don't want pleasure boats. I mean, but
Right.
there is a notice for the mariners to stay out of this particular area.
Right.
But I think they keep that kind of secret for now, just because they don't want too many people going over that area. And you'll notice they
Yeah.
deployed a bunch of buoys. So they have several buoys that were out there, and someone had got a picture of these buoys on land. I'm not sure if it was
Oh,
ahead of time or not. That
interesting.
was posted to X, and I made the mistake of not
So
bookmarking
that's
it
what this
because I
is. This
can't
is a
find it
buoy.
again. Yes, yes,
Okay. Yeah.
exactly. It's got a Starlink antenna on there. It also has a solar panel and everything else, and it's really not that big. And the pictures that they have on land, it's about the size of a normal buoy, and you can see that they have a ladder on there so that then the frogmen or the scuba divers, can come over, climb up there, do whatever they have to do. It looks like it's anchored out there, so it's probably not in super deep water. So
Right. Right.
they use traditional anchors to keep it in place. And this
Yeah.
tells us that, it really is X marks the spot here. Because if
Right.
that booster was like way off, then there's nothing for these
Yeah. It would have been
buoys to be able
teeny.
to record.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Now we
No,
know
so it's
this,
very
start,
impressive.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
very accurate. Yeah.
So Elon told Ellie that this was precise, and
Yeah.
that the Starship was about 6 kilometers off.
Oh, it was. Oh,
Mhm.
so it landed about 6K off the. I forgot.
Which is
He
not too
said
bad
the
considering the
no.
distance.
Well,
Yeah,
considering that it came in with a, we're going to get to the landing sequence in just a moment,
right.
but
Hmm.
yeah. So speaking of which, let's move on here. So this is actually just a little short thing. I'll get to the main thing, but this is just beautiful. I just
Yes.
find I find the re-entry stuff at the beginning with the different gases ionizing is just
Hmm.
spectacular.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely. And then
absolutely
then I
beautiful.
think, so we are seeing gases ionized, and we're probably also seeing parts of the Starship. So some of those other
Oh
outer
yes,
colors could
yes,
could be material that is also igniting from the heat of the plasma and
right,
going on out there. But yeah, the and I know some chemists can go through and tell you what the different colors are caused by,
right.
whether it's oxygen
Yeah.
or ozone. It could also be like, I think some of the colors I said, like the orange colors, are coming from sulfur. And for
Oh
me, it's like,
really?
oh
Okay.
yeah, it's like, but I guess there's a lot of sulfur in the upper atmosphere
Right.
from aerosols and stuff like that, and enough to be
Right.
able to cause some of those glows. Mhm.
Yeah. So sorry, trying to get to here we go. Trying to get to sorry. Let me see if I can get this guy to rewind just a little bit so we can get to the edge yeah, here we go. Okay. Whoops. Okay. So the really cool part about this, just to start with, I'll bring this back up again for us so we can see this. There we go. Actually, I'll do it this way so we can see the information here. But you'll notice that we are unfortunately that stuff's over it. What is the altitude? 120K. So around 110, even though that's officially in space, we get to a
Mm.
point where we start to get interaction with the atmosphere, which I find really fascinating because I think everyone feels like there's like this line and it's like not space, space.
It,
And
it
that's
it
not the
changes,
case at
yeah,
all. No,
yeah.
not at
It's
all.
like, yeah, because the Earth's atmosphere goes out technically, thousands of kilometers. If you want to look at it,
Right.
there's always
Right.
going to be something, but for the most part, it becomes so thin at above 100 kilometers, you can say, all right, we'll officially call that space. So
Yeah.
you
And you can go
you
a
could
long ways.
deploy
Yeah.
satellites in that orbit, and they'll stay there for a reasonable amount of time. There's
Right.
still enough drag, which is why Leo is usually a little bit higher than that in
Right.
order to be able to have a more permanent orbit. But even within Leo, I think within 1,000 years, you
Yep.
would deorbit based on the
And
drag
so anyway, so you can see that the
without doing
speed is
anything.
increasing still because it's falling. It's going back to Earth. So it's actually it was 26,400 I think when it stopped, and now it's 26,675, and we're
Hmm.
dropping. Eventually, there's going to be enough atmosphere to cause it to lift against it and drag, so it will slow down. But it is still increasing in velocity as it's falling, and just same thing as if you throw a baseball up in the air, it's going to go up to the top, and then as it falls back down again, it picks up speed
Hmm.
until the atmosphere starts to interact. So it's right around here, right at 110. Yeah, you can just start to see a little bit of orange glow starting to come off of that fin.
Yeah. And then I think right at 100 is when it really becomes pronounced.
Right, right. But what I just want to point out that it's not see you can already see it a little bit, but it's not like just a line. It's like it's just building and building and building. But also notice that I
Yeah, right
believe,
now you
yeah,
can definitely see
26.
it for sure.
Yeah,
It's like 107. So
right.
you're definitely seeing it on the under part of the body.
Right. And we're also hitting sunset. So now we're going into the shadow of the Earth, right?
Mhm.
You can see sunset on the clouds, which is why we got that angle. And eventually it's going to go into darkness, which makes it even more like obvious as brightness.
Yes, yes.
Beautiful shots of the
Now,
clouds as it's
up till
coming
this
in.
point,
Gosh.
my understanding is that from the launch, there was less than a half dozen tiles that came off. And
Wow.
now,
That's impressive.
I took a walk around the beach the other day, hoping to find some tiles. I didn't find any. I heard a report that someone, within a few hours after the launch, because they opened up the facility like within a couple of hours of the launch. I think by noontime,
Right.
you're already
Right.
allowed to go there. Someone claimed to have found something, but I have not been able to verify whether it was actually from
Right.
this launch or it could have been the person was lucky and actually found it from the last one because a lot washed up on the last one.
Yeah.
Um,
And also to be very specific, the last launch, it was tumbling at this point. So it was re-entering the atmosphere and out of control.
Right, in the last one.
So
So
yeah.
I'm just talking
Yeah.
about like for the launch itself, there were dozens and
Yeah.
dozens of tiles
Oh,
that
yeah,
were
yeah,
lost
yeah.
just
Yeah.
from the launch. In this case, it seems that they lost very few tiles. Two, of course, were intentionally removed just to see what the impact would be like, and
Right.
they had some temperature sensors there to get an idea.
Yeah.
And then as far as others, they did not lose any until
Right.
much later in. Obviously tiles start falling off much later, but fortunately it went into this situation without loss of tiles and without that loss of attitude control that they had before. So
Right,
right
right.
now
And
it's
notice it's actually
really
even
rock
though we're
solid.
93, 92 kilometers, up, and there's a lot of plasma being generated, it's still accelerating. So the air is still so thin that it's actually accelerating, continuing to fall faster,
Yes.
because we're now up to 26,756. So it's really not until we get a little deeper. And also, it'll be really interesting to note when we get to about 68 kilometers, it stays there for a long time. And that's because
Yes.
they're using the blunt body to generate lift at five
Yes.
times the speed of sound. Even a big tub actually generates quite a bit of lift. So same
Yes.
thing that the
Yes.
space
Yeah.
shuttle did. Space shuttle did all sorts of turns and up and down. The Apollo missions did that. Even though they had the gumdrop, they had the center of gravity
Hmm.
away from the center of drag, and so they could rotate it and actually cause it to lift and go up and down in the atmosphere to reduce the amount of drag and the amount of heating.
Right.
So
So if you stay in the higher part of the atmosphere because it's not so thick, the
right,
heating is not going to be quite so bad.
yeah,
Exactly. So you don't
yeah,
want to get down too deep because then that's going to be a problem. So they're trying to skim across the top of the Earth's atmosphere
exactly,
for as long as possible before they start to plunge in more. Because at that point, they either they have to hit their mark or they may have slowed down enough in their velocity that they can begin to go in. So
right.
the drag force and also, if you look at the energy that's going in there is a function of velocity
This, by the way, is
and
beautiful.
density.
That
Right,
purple is,
right,
I think it's
right,
oxygen. I think purple
right.
is oxygen. I'm not, yeah. Anyway, but yeah,
Yeah,
um,
and the heating
yeah,
power goes to something like the cube of velocity. So when
right,
so if you can bring that velocity down a significant amount, then
right,
it's going to be a lot better.
yeah,
And but at the same, so you try to do the high velocities when the density is low.
right,
And then at some
exactly,
point, as and if you can keep it in balance, that as the V goes down, you can start to increase your density just a little bit. And density
right,
is basically a proxy for height. That's all,
yeah, yeah. And you can
or
see now
altitude. Yep.
it's starting to decrease, relatively rapidly, 26,500. So, I
Yep.
mean, not that fast, but we're at about 75K. And so notice the angle of attack, though, that this little guy right here, the spaceship icon,
Yep.
it's like 80 degrees or 75 degrees. It's
Right.
very,
Now,
very,
unfortunately,
vertical.
they're doing it as like a 2D thing, and it's not quite right
Yeah.
because I think
Yeah.
it's rolled about
It's
90
actually
degrees
like
from there.
this. Yeah.
So you get the impression that one of the flaps must be going in towards the
Yeah.
forward
No, it's
direction. It's like,
not.
no, it's
Yeah.
rotated around.
Yeah.
I really wish it's because it's a little bit misleading. We look at that icon, you're trying to understand what's going on. No,
Right.
it's perfectly symmetric. So the underbody, which is the black part, that
Right.
is what's going forward, and the
Yeah.
silvery part is up top. That's what they refer to as the leeward part.
Right. And that's why they don't need tiles on it because, of course, you can see it's not getting the direct
Right
interaction with
now,
the atmosphere.
they don't need tiles because it's stainless steel.
Right.
If it had been
Exactly.
made out of aluminum
Yeah, they would still need
or
it.
carbon composite, they probably would need it. which
Right.
is why even though stainless steel weighs a bit more, because it has its own built-in thermal protection, you save a
Right.
lot of mass by not needing as many tiles.
Right. And if you watch this, notice that the altitude, it sticks around 70 to 68 kilometers for a very long time. Again, because remember, this thing isn't falling like this. It's not, most of the velocity is sideways
Still
that
that
they're
way.
scrubbing.
Yes.
Yeah, so they want to come in and scrub off the sideways velocity. So that's the whole goal of what they're doing right now. But they're able to use the angle of attack to create lift because there's a less, the leeward side has less pressure on it, which causes
Hmm.
it to lift up, and so it's very cool. That you can do supersonic dynamics, um, and actually create lift out of this whole thing. So, but you can see it's been stuck there at like 68 to 70 kilometers for altitude for a long time. It doesn't, and then once it actually does go down, you'll see that the attitude of the little rocket icon kind of tips over a little bit, and then it
Hmm.
starts to fall more vertically down. So currently, it was coming over at the beginning at the sunset. I think it was the coast of Africa that we saw it going over, but it's making some pretty good distance because it's still traveling very rapidly right now. So yeah. And of course, again, very beautiful. It looks like a still frame. It actually looks like a painting or something, not like an actual like active video at this point. But I believe that it is all. When you see the other one is much more
Hmm.
obvious because it's a closer up shot. Oh yeah, there you go. See, now you can start to see contrails coming off the
Begin to
back.
see a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So for the longest time,
So
you're right. It
yeah.
seemed to be a frozen image, and then we
Right.
start getting different colors as we get into different parts of the atmosphere,
Right.
and we have
And
a
also
different
note
mix of gases.
68 kilometers, it's just rock solid at 68. So they're scrubbing as much velocity as they can at that altitude. They want to keep it up there as long as possible. So very cool. I mean, it's obviously completely controlled reentry at this point, until Flappy starts to have some issues.
Right. Right. Now,
Yeah.
let's remember that there are 4 flaps on there, and even
Right.
though we only have a camera on one of the flaps,
And
we can assume that its companion flap on the other side was experiencing the exact same thing.
right. Right.
Now, I think because those are the forward flaps, they may have been experiencing more heating than the ones behind them. They probably have
Right.
telemetry and images of those, but it was probably getting kind of toasty for them as well. So what's
Yeah.
amazing is not that flap held together, but the other one did. So
Right.
both those flaps were unflappable in this sort of situation, despite the fact that they were able to flap.
Yes. So just again, the reason why this is complicated is this. It's hard to make a dinner plate move
Yes.
like this when you have to hinge something. And that was Elon says that specifically to Ellie, and that's about what it is. It's like a dinner plate. It's ceramic. So it's a
Yes.
hard material with mostly air inside it because air is an excellent insulator, but it has no flexibility. It can't bend around those joints.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's the exact point where that's the chink in the armor,
Yeah, yeah. Usually,
Right.
and the thing is once it sort of flaps a little bit or opens up, it exposes itself in there. So you would have to put something inside of there. And we've probably
Right.
seen hinge mechanisms where they'll like it be a piece of rubber or something like that because you want to do some weather stripping or weatherproofing in there. And it's tricky to get that to work. And
Right.
it's never perfect. It's never as good as everything else that's around there. The other thing I find amazing is that anyone that's hung a door before knows how
Right.
difficult it is to get a hinge to actually work correctly if it's
Oh,
a
it's terrible.
slightly misaligned
Yeah.
or and look, think about this. The temperature is extreme there. So
Yeah.
that metal is expanding everywhere in
Right.
there. Yet somehow they managed to make sure that the hinge actually functions as a hinge. And I'm
Right.
sure there's like distortions, there's all these other things that are going on there. It's not binding up, it's able to move. And don't forget,
Right.
there's, it's not just that the hinge is able to move itself, the mechanism itself, the motors and
Right.
everything else that are in there, they're being exposed to probably some extreme stresses at the same time. Now they may be, back in the skirt a little bit or hidden underneath, but
Right.
still there's there's a lot going on there. So
Oh,
there's
yeah.
some kind of
No.
linkage mechanism or something like that that's feeling the heat.
Well, I mean, just look at where the contrails are coming out on the rear flap here. That it's where the interaction of that flap is. That's the place where the most
Yep.
atmospheric turbulence is happening.
Yes.
So yeah, it's obviously exposed. The crazy thing is that this reentry is very long. Like I think it's an hour and 1 minute when it finally lands, and it started at about 40 minutes when it actually began to interface.
Mhm.
So it's about a 20-minute landing procedure, which is significantly longer than the launch. If you look at how long it takes to actually get to orbital velocity, I think it's about 12 minutes, something like that. Like it's about 12 minutes to get up to velocity and about
Hmm.
20 to get down from orbital. So but it also notice some things are starting to come off. It's starting to get a little bit spicy there, let's say, because you can start to see things, coming off and uh, beautiful, like the glow of, yeah, maybe nitrogen, something like that. Anyway, it's absolutely, but we're going to start to see very soon. It's going to start glowing on the
Yeah, I think when
underside
you're
of the
seeing,
flap
yeah,
here.
when you start seeing the orange in that, that's probably sort of metallic things,
Yeah,
metallics or
exactly.
silica or
It's
something
not
else.
it's not a good sign. It's very much not
Right,
a good
right,
sign.
right.
So, but we are, I mean, look at the deceleration. I mean, finally we're decelerating. We're below 20,000 kilometers an hour, which by the way is still 4 times the speed of sound.
Hmm.
Right? Is that right? No, sorry,
Yes.
about 20. Mach 20, right?
Wait a
Because
minute.
it's
See,
1100,
well, it depends on how you define
1100.
the speed. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. It's sea level.
The
Yeah.
thing is that, yeah, the sea level is about 1,000. Up there, it's a lot
Right.
lower. So
Right.
it's a lot easier to go hypersonic velocities in thin
Yeah.
atmosphere than thick. So
Yeah.
the speed of sound actually goes down, which
Right.
is why you could. So it might be like, I'm not sure what it is. Let's say it's 500 kilometers per hour,
Yeah. So,
rather
yeah.
than
So,
1,000.
gosh, it could be like
Then that
Mach 30 something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like Mach 35, Mach 40, something
Right.
like that,
Yeah.
technically.
And also notice that the icon of the ship, see when I said it was at like 80 degrees or 75 before, it's tipped over a little bit now. So it's starting to angle itself more flatly than it was, but still
Hmm.
mostly coming in. Again, it's all sideways velocity. Almost none of this, which is the reason why like the Blue Origin New Shepard is not that big a deal because it just goes boop boop and comes straight back down. The velocities
Hmm.
involved are much much different than we're talking about here. Anyway, I forgot how long they stayed on the starboard. It was a shame they didn't flip the view to the rear one again eventually, but
Yes, yes.
SpaceX might have wanted to stay on the other one because it was the one taking the most damage. So if it had broken up, they may have wanted that video until the last
Hmm.
possible second. Maybe, I
Well,
don't know.
I think they had at least 11 cameras, so it's just whatever they decided to show us. But I'm sure they were getting feeds for all the other
Right.
parts.
Oh, here it's starting to burn through clearly. You can
Yes.
see that the backside is glowing and there's some gases coming through the X. So
I
the
mean,
tiles at
it
this point
literally
have
looks like someone's just
escaped.
taking a plasma torch
Yeah,
to that thing.
exactly. And probably what happened is it's probably not the tiles themselves on the flap. It's probably the gas got under it and into the infrastructure of the flap. So it
Yep.
probably came under the tiles.
Once
But yeah,
it's
I
in
mean
there.
it's just incredible that this stayed together. Because I mean we're going 16,000 kilometers an hour and 56K up. So I thought at this point it was toast. Because I
Right.
figured number one, it
And
would fall off, and number two, it would never work. I mean, the actuators have to be able to move it.
yeah. And when you see
So
some big chunks, you figure that's it. It's over with. And
yeah.
wasn't there like a loss of transmission for an instant or two along
Yes, there
there?
was, there was. And then, Joe Tegmeyer said that he thinks that what's covering the camera eventually that makes it really hard to see is actually vapor deposition of the metallic. It's turning that into a plasma and then it's depositing on the
Yes,
camera.
on the
So,
camera. Yeah,
yeah.
basically it's
So, I
soot.
mean,
I
yeah,
mean, you're having a lot. Yeah, and you're almost seeing that these little splotches that are coming there on the
right,
camera.
right,
So that's yeah, definitely it's the material from the
right.
tiles and everything else.
But look at that. It is melting. It is clearly melting. I mean, pieces are just melting. It's incredible that this actually lived. And then, of course, sadly, we lose the most of what we can see. It's very difficult to see after this. But yeah, let me see if I can maybe kick it to double speed, 2x speed while we're doing this. So, because yeah, I mean, we're still 50K up in the air. There's really not that much to see anymore as it's making its way down. But every once in a while, there's like a little break in the thing, and so you can see some of the atmospheric reentry going on. But I mean, I don't know what the G forces must be, but it is decelerating very rapidly at this
Yeah, I
point.
think that the G forces still were like in a normal range, like, 2 to 3 Gs.
Oh,
And
really? So it's pretty
yeah,
soft then.
it
Okay.
wasn't that high. There,
Okay.
someone already did that
Okay.
and
Yeah.
showing where it was, and
There's the AOS. That's when we thought it was dead,
I was like,
and
oh,
then
that's
it came
dead. And it's
back.
like, whoop, it
Yeah.
came back. Yes, I mean,
Yeah. Amazing. No, but I think like if you look at the Apollo profiles, the launch was only 3 or 4 Gs, but the actual reentry was I think it
reentry is very
approached
high.
7.
Yes,
It was like
yes,
7 at some
yep,
point. So yeah,
yep.
very very high. So anyway, I'll turn this back to 1x speed in just a minute, but I mean we're still 44K up in the air. That's why I said this is a very, very long reentry profile. It takes a long time for it to get back down again.
And the other thing to remember is the Apollo astronauts were coming back from the moon. So this is
Oh,
just
yeah, so they're going
a LEO
40,000
reentry.
kilometers an hour, not, yeah, which
Not 20,
ups
25,
the
26. Yes.
amount of heating very, very much over what we've got right now. So, yeah. So, yeah, and remember, heating is by the cube. So again, it goes out, and I thought at that point, I was like, "Yeah, we're toast. There's nothing there." So, there we go. But it eventually came back. So yeah, at that point, I was convinced because it had been LOS for such
It's
a
been
long
too long,
time.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we were still getting telemetry though, so I was like, "Well, okay." I expected at some point it was just going to start spinning out of control because
Yep.
one of the flaps
So
would break.
so it was, yeah, it
Yeah.
was definitely LOS, but not SOL.
By the way, the Starlink, we didn't talk about that much, but Starlink was able this never no one's ever been able to do this before to actually see the reentry live. And the reason why is number 1, because Starlink is amazing, but number 2, because it was able to shoot the signal up and not
Up rather than
down
down.
towards Earth stations. Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, I don't even know what the hell this is anymore. It's just a complete mess.
Right. When
But
it starts to,
there is something.
yeah, I'd asked
Yeah.
a question to Ben in a way about that. I said, if the Starlink constellation had existed during the Apollo project, would we have been able to see them? And he doesn't think there would any be reason why not. 'Cause a lot of
Oh,
it really
really?
was just the fact that you could point up.
Oh,
It's
I thought I thought it was
now
so
it's possible to
small that the ion cloud would have closed
it's
over it. Yeah.
possible. It's possible. I mean, the other thing is that, yeah, they may have been more enveloped, whereas this may have had a little bit of a window. So he's not 100% sure. He says, yeah, I mean, it might possibly would have just been because all the signals were coming to ground stations rather than
Right.
going up in the sky.
Well, we can actually test that out with Starliner because it's more or less the same shape as the Apollo. So they
Yeah,
could put a
yeah. So we'll
Starlink on
find
top
out.
and see
We'll
if it
find out.
worked. Yeah. Oh, and
Yep.
now watch. This was the other thing was the orientation. It started to look like a dart, which you would
Mhm.
imagine if it lost complete control that it just would have had because I assume that the what not the center of gravity, the center of
Yes.
drag. So that I would have
Right.
assumed it would point straight down and just nosedive into the ocean. And this was the point at which again I thought, no way, this is going to survive because it's pointing pretty
Right.
much straight down.
And now you see
But
it's managed to get control back. But
yeah,
the big
yeah,
thing is like, okay, you're getting control back, but there's no way those engines are going to relight. I mean,
exactly.
it's got to be toast right now. It's
Right.
amazing anything is coming back. How it
Right.
can go through such a punishing thing and then still light up those engines.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
we're
and
starting.
and so you can sort of see the flap there a little bit. It
Right.
never did the telemetry never showed the engines lit, but you can definitely see that they lit because it slows down and it's upright at the moment of
And
contact with
again,
the
I think it
water.
waits until about 1 kilometer. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And it's going really
Now
fast.
this,
I mean,
so
that's
the speed is
620.
probably subsonic at this point.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's only 10K up, so yeah, so
Yep.
now you can start to see the flap and it's moving. It's like literally that thing that looks like a melted pile of mess is somehow maintaining control over this ship, which is
Right.
and like you
Right.
said, more than likely the other side was the exact same way. So probably both of them were a complete
They're all
disaster.
pretty bad. Now,
Yeah,
see, at this point, in order to be able to reorient it with those flaps, you just need
right,
to get like a force here or maybe a downward force like that, which is what
right,
the flaps are doing. And part of that could be accomplished, of course, just with the lift coming over. But the other
right.
is just producing drag. And right now, those things are so beat up, they're really good at producing drag.
Yeah, that's true. It's not laminar airflow. There's no laminar airflow over these fins. Yeah, right. Yeah. And I have a feeling if we'd had daylight, we might have been able to see things a little bit better, but we'll get it. It's going to light up in just a second here. Again, I thought this was toast. I thought it was coming in and hadn't really relit. And yeah, you can see it kind of looks like it's lost signal. It's 0 kilometers, but now you can see. I mean, it actually the lighting of the oh man, look at that. That is incredible. So yeah, and then the deceleration happens really rapidly. And it's just incredible. I mean, it's just like, okay, it touched down. It seemed like it touched down at a relatively there you can see the ocean. But I mean, it touched down. That was a soft landing.
Yeah,
I
so I had
yeah.
LOS also.
Yes, you did. We both
Yeah.
had LOS at the
And I
same time.
survived. And I survived. I managed to come back.
You're gonna occupy Mars.
I
So
did not place the dish very well. I should have like
right.
put it a little bit further back there
Yeah.
to get a proper view. And the other thing, remember, it's like the mobile version, which means I
Right.
get lower priority from everyone else because I'm
Right.
not really supposed to be in this cell. So
Yeah.
they give me whatever. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I might be sharing like the same cell with Dirty Tesla.
Oh
And
yeah, you might be.
yeah,
And
and if I am
yeah.
right now, he's got priority over me. So he and his wife Stephanie. I mean, it's like right at the top of the hour is exactly 10 o'clock right now. So they're probably
Right.
starting to watch something on Netflix, and
Right.
oh, there it goes. You
It's
know,
all
I lost my
it's his
bandwidth.
fault. It's like blame it
It's
on
all Dirty
Chris.
Tesla's fault.
It's
Yeah,
all, it's like, hey,
exactly.
hey, give me my signal.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, really remarkable. One of the things I want to call out is the software people at SpaceX, because the the fluid dynamic profile of those flaps completely changed throughout the entire
Oh yeah.
profile of the reentry, and yet it still maintained control. That's incredible. Yeah. Oops, I think I may have lost you again. Maybe. Maybe. Whoop. You with me?
Yep. I'm still here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah. So you were saying, oh yes, yeah. It was a very remarkable. It's just, again, it's not just the hardware people, because the hardware people, clearly I'm impressed because they built something that actually survived what it never should have been able to. And Elon actually said, number one, he said that they're going to lick that the next time when he was talking to Tim Dodd, that they'd have it solved. I don't know how they're going to do that. And number two, he said that they're going to build a harder steel that will be able, not harder, but one that
Right.
will be able to maintain,
What? Yeah,
withstand
I
higher
think
temperatures.
it's a 500 series steel. So it's
Right.
like the 300 they have now. They also have a 500 series
Yeah.
steel, which will probably have a higher chromium content that is, I think, able to withstand
Yep.
the heating a little bit better.
Yeah, and then also, of course, one other really nice thing, just and it's not like a surprise, but Elon specifically said that them working on the stainless steel for the Starship was what inspired Cybertruck. So, or at least
Yes,
its exoskeleton. So, of
yes,
course.
yes, yeah,
So,
yeah. So there's that is remarkable to be able to on the fly come up with the control parameters because
yeah,
most aircraft control systems are, they go through to try to find exactly what those parameters are,
right.
what you can expect for the lift from your wings and everything else, because you don't expect half the wing to fall off or anything like
Right,
that.
exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and so that's remarkable that, in
Yeah,
real time to be able to make those adjustments
right.
is something else. And again, remember that you had basically sort of two failures going on in both places with,
Right.
the flaps taking a beating, but then turn around and let's also remember the booster, they had an engine out.
Right.
And when that went out, it didn't matter. They were able to recover. So they've
Right.
already gone through these different scenarios of what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And for all we know, they don't really talk about using neural networks and stuff like that, but it seems like that's probably what they're doing, is using something that can handle fuzzy input.
I'm wondering if they are. I think they've said that they don't use AI anywhere in there. I think Elon had mentioned something like that a few weeks
Okay.
ago, that just
Right.
about everything is heuristic on the control side.
Well, it
Um,
may, in that case, they may be using some fuzzy logic or something, like a little bit
mhm.
more older school
Old school
heuristic.
machine, yes,
Yeah.
yeah, or yeah,
Right.
machine learning kind of thing. So,
Right.
yeah, so I mean, there's obviously some interesting things to see from the ground as well as what's on
Oh
there.
yeah. 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 You want to share
Yeah, yeah.
something?
So
Yeah.
here's
Oh, there we go.
if you go there, you can still find lots of
Right.
this around. There was actually right across from the entrance a big pile that people had collected. You can just
Right.
go over and grab off it. But if you go for a walk around the dunes, you'll just find them. And it's remarkable what you can see there. And I will try to do a share right now.
Okay.
And
That'll be cool.
I can show you a couple of the images I was able to grab on the way. So let's go ahead and share the screen.
All right. Here
Okay,
we go.
so this is us testing out the what we call the latte ledge. There's a smaller
Perfect.
one already in your Model Ys. The Highland has a much better one.
Right.
Just in Boca Chica. This is Anna. So she's a family friend and mechanical and aerospace engineer. She's a rocket scientist. She's actually built liquid fueled rocket engines and everything else.
Right.
So
Very
she's
cool.
quite accomplished in what she's able to do. And we headed out to take a look. So here's this is basically pictures on my cell phone. Okay, you're
Right.
getting that close that you can get that kind of resolution. You can sort of
Crazy.
see back here where they decided to put a little bit of extra tiling because they're kind of assuming that you're going to get some heating in those areas. It's interesting. There's a little gap in there, which I don't think they need that for the hinge mechanism. They might just decide, oh, we don't think it's going to get hot there. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and
And they might end
that's
up
what we can,
correcting
you
for
know,
that over
all you have to
time.
do is
It's
just
quite
go there and you
possible
can
too.
see it.
So,
And it's pretty much
um,
right across from the
yep.
entranceway here. Here's the tank farm. You can see how kind of close the tank farm is to
Right.
this. And there we are, just right out in the entrance. You know, you just park over there,
Dishy.
set the same old dishy up there, was able to link up from there. Boy, I got a lot of dust in there. I was using that as like a mini studio and also for shade. But
Right.
then the wind, it was a windy day the day before, so I got a lot of
Uh,
dust in there
ugh.
to have to clear off. But you know, here's a much bigger view of the new tank
Right.
farm here to the
Yeah.
right,
And the
and to the
vertical
left,
tanks are the old
the
ones.
vertical tanks, and those
Yeah.
are being removed. So it doesn't matter that they took a
Right.
beating or anything like that.
Yeah.
They've been hit, you know, with the concrete tornado, so it put some dents in there. And of course, you know, once you get some dents, things tend to buckle a little bit easier later on,
Right.
and
Right.
that's what the shockwaves now. I did have some images showing the other side of it, but basically the second day from this vantage point, you could already see it was beat up.
Right. Right.
Yep. And then just some views that you would have from the beach and the different areas there going on around. And let me see. Okay, so right here, if you look
Oh,
down where Anna's foot's there to give us an idea of
yeah.
the size of that's a chunk that's right
Oof.
out across from there.
Jeez.
Now, I think if
Wow.
I go back okay, so that was like, you know, just getting a close up of,
Right.
you know, pretty much what I just showed you, you know, another. Now, this is, I think, a quick live stream that I did of something to get an idea. So, oh, looks like I didn't do anything. I just accidentally, I thought I was taking a picture and didn't get much of anything. Okay,
Got a video.
so here, that's where I noticed, like, wait a minute, I'm seeing these two heat tiles are missing. And
Right.
then we were told
And
that
by the
don't worry
way,
about it, it's
notice
intentional.
the interstage with the cutout.
Yes, that's the
Right.
ring.
So,
That's
yeah.
actually, yeah. And believe it or not, just that little section there weighs 10 tons.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. You
But
you
yes, definitely
you
two
and I
tiles are
together
missing.
could not lift that up.
Oh,
So,
hell
yeah.
no. 10 tons. I
10
mean,
tons. That's
that's a
quite a bit.
lot.
That's a lot for sure.
Lift with your legs, not your back.
Yep. Okay, you know, just some other views that you get from the dome. Now, this is the
Right.
next day. You see, I came prepared. I've got my Earth and Mars socks on.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to know what the socks were that I had. And we were invited to go on a SpaceX boat that had been chartered for them to go out.
That's
So this is
very
from Port
cool.
Isabel, and they have these different charter boats. This is the Osprey they were able to go out on,
Right.
and we set up Dishy on here, and basically we are looking off over here. Somewhere over there is where the rocket is. That's all
Unfortunately.
we know. And we brought all kinds of kit for taking all kinds of pictures, and there was like nothing to take a picture of, unfortunately.
Right.
Now, we can't quite see it, but there's a line of Coast Guard boats right out here to make sure we do not leave this bay.
Oh,
We
yeah,
do
yeah,
not
yeah.
go out in the ocean. So we were right up at the exclusion zone. We're a little bit closer than people on South Padre Island.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and
Very
so we're
cool.
just sitting there hoping to see something, you know. And this is
Oh,
turning around. This is looking in the
yeah.
exact opposite direction. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
so this is looking at what we believe to be the tower. And
Right.
then Dishy is right behind us. And then, okay, so there's Dishy, there's basically the tower. And then you
Right.
go here, and this is the Margaritaville over here.
Yeah.
And then this over here is La Blanca. And then you can
Yeah.
see these are the Coast Guard boats that are like, nah, you can't cross.
Right.
That's it. You're staying right where you are.
None shall pass.
Yes. Okay. And that was that. We don't have to worry about that.
Oh,
That was,
yeah. Hey, and
yeah.
by the way, congratulations on being on Al
Yep.
Jazeera.
Yep.
That was very cool.
Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Royden invited me. And so basically I took shade underneath the solar panels here.
Right.
But what I wanted to point out here is that these are already the pre-constructed prefab sections for the new tower that's going in.
Right.
And it's a little hard to see, but right here is a heart. And in the heart, it
Yes.
says
Yes.
stack me. So they're, you know, they can't wait for that thing to go ahead and get set up.
Very
Yep.
cool.
And now from here, so here are the old high
Wow.
bays.
This parking lot
You
is
see,
full.
and
Gee.
you'll see there's Cybertrucks there. Now this, if you remember, this used to just be gravel.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
It was a
yeah.
gravel road. It was just, and anyone could park. There was like no one parked there. Now it is completely full, and they're building a parking garage. And
Oh, my
they've
gosh.
repaved the road. So the infrastructure there has
What?
changed. You'll notice
Oh,
the power
wow.
lines are coming in now. The road has
Yeah.
been slightly widened a little bit. There's not as many potholes. And this
Okay.
here is a new factory building. It looks like almost like bigger Berlin.
Wow.
You know, there's like glass panels along here. and it's pretty big. You can't tell from that vantage point there, but it is pretty big. The
Right.
parking garage is not completed yet. They're still working on it. And behind it over here is where the rocket garden is. And I think
Wow.
we'll see some. So turning around, I mean, from there, we can see where the tower is.
Right.
And then, you know, from the same parking lot, this is like one of the old tents that they use. That's where the rocket garden is. And here is what they call, I think, the Tiki Hut. This is where they have the SpaceX parties afterwards. And I think right on top of that is a picture of, or is also a dish. So they have a Starlink dish there as well. And yeah, okay, so we're seeing that.
Wow. That parking
And
garage is, I've got to get back again. All this stuff is so
right.
different.
So this,
It's
so you see
crazy.
right now, you can only make it that far and you're stopped. It used to be you could walk
Oh,
down this road to the
yeah,
rocket
you could go
garden.
all the way.
You
Yeah.
cannot go
Oh,
down there anymore, unfortunately.
oh.
So
By the
the
way,
rocket garden days
look
are
at these
over.
cars for scale, people. You know, when it's stacked on that tower, you lose perspective. These things are huge. Look at the
Yeah,
size of those
yeah,
starships.
yeah.
And that's just the Starship. That's the top part.
Yep, yep,
So
yep.
it's nuts.
Yeah. So the other thing is that you notice this little thing here. This is probably the mock-up they're working on
Right.
for the crew part,
Yeah.
or maybe for HLS or something like that. Because
Yeah.
it seems, you know,
Exactly.
so that might be it. So, you know, that they're figuring out how that's going to look
Right.
or laying it out there now.
Yeah,
And
very
again,
cool.
we have
Wow.
all these different sections that are going to get ready to get stacked for Tower 2. Now, there's a bit of a, let's say, um, discussion about when Tower 2 is going to be constructed, because they've cleaned out the orbital pad. We can get
Mhm.
another kind of close-up of it, of the suborbital test that they used to have there. So it's cleared out. So
Right.
they're ready to start putting in whatever infrastructure they need for the pad, and whether they're ready to start putting these and stacking them up or not is a good question. You
Yeah.
know, one theory that's bouncing around, and again, this is not something that I just came up with on my own.
Right.
Let's, if it's speculation, it's informed speculation that
Okay.
they could be putting these things together to potentially use them to grab the next one. Now, there's some discussion that well, this is actually a different version of the other one. It might be actually for the version 2, version 3, so it may or may not actually be able to do it. It may not be ready in
Right.
time and everything else. It's not a catch only. Yes, we know it's going to be a launch and catch, but you can probably build the catch part before you build the launch part, because the
Right.
launch part, you need the tank farm, you need the deluge system, you need
Yeah.
that orbital mount, which has got a lot of complex hardware. I mean, that's what they call
Right.
stage 0. That's the real stage 0
Right.
part. You know, you were talking about the sound, the Gemini sound that you got there,
Yeah.
because that's where everything is like spinning up that outer ring.
Right.
So they don't have to put that on the rocket ship itself. So remember, the
Right.
whole idea is the legs aren't going up. The tower is the legs. That's the whole idea of the catching system, is so you
Right.
don't have to have legs. And that outer ring, because they don't gimbal or do anything else, and they don't relight. So
Yeah.
only the
Ever.
inner ring relights. It has to have all the stuff to be able to do that. They say, well, wait a
Right.
minute, let's keep that on the ground, keep the mast down.
Right.
So that takes a while to bring all that stuff online, versus if you're going to do something simple that could be catch only. And
Right.
that's, now it depends upon the time frame. Now, okay, so I brought
Hey, you
along
saw
my,
a brief
that's
moment.
that's all we saw. That's all we saw,
Jeez.
unfortunately. That was,
Oh man.
however, we were able to hear the rumble.
Yeah.
And Ellie was probably cursing me, because if I hadn't been there, it wouldn't have been fogged out, because the last time we went to see the largest, you know, we were in the same proximity of the world's largest operational rocket, if you want to think of it that way. It was fogged out. So our first Falcon Heavy launch was completely enshrouded. We were 2.9 miles away and we had the worst view.
Jeez. Crazy.
Yep.
Crazy.
So that's a
Love
picture
that, by the
of the
way.
Starbase antennas, the Starbase sign as you go in
Yeah.
there. Actually, that tape is around there because they're still doing some construction on there, so you cannot completely read the Starbase yet.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
All right. But still, you got
And
the
of course,
S
the
and
solar
the E.
panels. Now, this
Yeah.
is the next day. So I took a walk out there the next day, and I'm all excited. I'm running, look, I found a tile. Nah, it's the top of someone's thermos. So some styrofoam around there.
Well, it was installation of a variety.
And as
so
far as
there
I
you
know,
go.
that maybe that was the picture that someone took, you know, that said that, hey, I
Yeah.
found a tile, you know, because they said it was a broken tile. It wasn't a completed one. And so,
Right. Well,
um, okay. So now this here, you can make a walk around here. This is about as close as you can get as you
Right.
walk along the beach. That it used to be you could kind of get closer, but they bought this property, but they had it poorly marked. And now
Right.
they mark it for sure that you can see it. And you'll see this sign is still standing.
Right.
Okay. And where that
Yep.
is. All right. So I'm still standing. Yeah. 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 Um, however, and now, but
Oof.
you can see
Look
the
at that. What a
beating that
mess. Yeah.
the tanks took exactly from that. And now, so along here, the property line is kind of along here, and there's two sets of areas that you're not allowed to go to. You're not allowed to trespass over here, and on the left side, you're not allowed to go over there because that's where all the birds are nesting.
Right.
So,
Right.
so you're not allowed to go in that area.
Kind of a little.
And the other thing about this image I want everyone to see is that you could see again, kind of this is the deluge system, I believe, right here. There was the other
Right.
part of the tank farm over here. How close that is, but it's kind of shielded a little bit behind, either this berm or embankment that they put, as
Right.
well as behind the tower. So if it comes to be grabbed and it misses, either it's going to go out to ocean or maybe it goes ahead, just lands over here somewhere.
Right.
Over here, you can see these cranes way over there.
Right.
Those are where the new site is being constructed. So you get an idea of the distance between the two.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is that south? So it's the same distance from the
this is
ocean, or is that further inland?
that's inland. So that's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
west.
Okay.
That would be west. So basically, the Boca Chica Road starts here. This is the beach side over here, and it just kind of continues out. So that's
Right.
west.
Okay. So
So
that is further away from the ocean if there was a
yeah, it is.
issue
It's
with the
further away.
catch. So yeah.
Now there
Yeah.
is like an estuary over there. It's very shallow. So if it misses the
Right.
catch, the question is, how much of this is SpaceX property? How much of it is wildlife preserve? There's
Right.
a lot of questions, and maybe it is wiser to land here. If this
Right.
is, let's say, going to be deprecated because it's an older one, and you're building
Right.
like the much better one. But
Right.
the funny things we've been hearing is, and Scott Manley even mentioned it, that they want to start the construction of the second tower before attempting grabbing it. And I'm trying to say,
Right.
okay, if it's not part of the whole thing, then why does it have to be built
Right.
beforehand if it's not kind of part of it? And maybe it's
Yeah.
just because they want to make sure they're in a certain state of construction to make sure that they have another tower ready if something goes wrong with this one.
Right.
Because Elon said 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
He said the next launch is in about a month. In about a month, he kind of said that last time, and 6 to 8 weeks, and we're about a month past what that was. My expectation is it's going to be at least 2 months. They may
Yeah.
think they're ready, but I think that's very aggressive. Late July at the earliest, more like
Right.
probably mid-August, somewhere around there. And he says
Yeah.
50-50. So it's like, if they think it's a 50-50 catching it right, that means they're going to have to expect, a little bit of damage here.
Right.
However,
Also,
this launch,
speaking of an incredible thing to go
Mhm.
see, if they do attempt a catch, you'll get to see the launch, and then you wait about 6 minutes, and you get to see the catch.
if it's a
So,
clear day like this, if it's a
yeah.
clear, but if it's like what
Yeah.
we saw, yeah, you'll see
Then you'll
nothing, which
hear
would be
it.
unfortunate.
You'll hear
Yeah,
it.
you'll kind of hear it or see some sort of result.
Yeah.
So just to get an idea of what we're seeing now, the day before, you could see the no trespassing signs along here. So
Right.
I showed you that there was one, but these are a little bit
Right.
closer.
Oh, and they just got
These are the others on the other side, which is like, this is where you stay back because of the birds nesting. All these yellow signs are there. Either they ran out there the next day to make sure they put them back up, or they
Right.
did not get affected. I'm not quite sure it is, but if you look around there, nothing really seems to be disturbed. So
Yeah.
we had to walk this fine corridor in between here.
Right.
And again, we can sort of see the tank farm here.
right.
The deluge system, the tank farm is over there, and get a kind of a close up just to get an idea. And you might see this little post right here. I've got a close up of that post. Okay. This was a post the day before. So that got broken off with the no trespassing sign.
Right.
Another one that got broken off. And this one got that's the one I'm talking about, kind of canted over. So those three did
Yeah.
not fare quite so well because we saw the shock waves and everything else kind of coming out from
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so you have a little bit of an idea. Now, walking around, so from here, this one looks like they put this one back up. I think
Right.
it used to actually be right on there. And now it's hard to tell. This is a really big piece. I mean, you see the rebar that's in there? This is a huge chunk, right kind of towards the edge where we walked off of there onto the dune that you can see was thrown out there from the previous pad, still there.
Jeez.
And also closer to the beach. And I'm surprised no one salvaged that yet.
Right.
I should have had my chance when I was down there. I probably would have fit in the back of the Model Y, but it's a heavy
Right.
piece of steel. And
Yeah.
so you can
Yeah.
see something that kind of came off from the first one. And then, just kind of a nice view from there. And
Beautiful.
I
Wow.
think that's basically all I had. I'm not sure if there's
Yeah.
anything else. Oh yeah, this is just like an image of the tank farm from the day before. And you can
Right.
see not a blemish on it.
Yeah.
It looks fine.
The day after, it
Uh,
looked like somebody kicked it a few times.
yeah. So there's
Sweet.
a close up of that. Yeah, it seems to be in
Wow.
pretty good shape. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And some
Yeah, that was it.
tacos.
Yeah,
Gotta
some
have some
tacos.
tacos.
Yep. Yep.
Wow, amazing. Well, thank
Oh
you.
wow,
Well,
wow. So I need to stop
yeah, we'll
sharing.
just
There
do
we go.
that.
Whoa,
We'll
that
we'll
was weird.
avoid that.
It's like plaid mode,
Infinite screen. We have infinite screen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. That was actually really cool to see those pictures and to get like the kind of up close. It's a damn shame. I'm gonna come. What you need is me to come with you because I will be the magic touch and I will make it all good. So I'll make sure that I get there and then it'll be
You were
sunny day.
supposed to, so it's your fault.
I
It's your
was,
fault that you didn't come.
you know what? It's the Tesla shareholder meeting that I am leaving for on Wednesday morning. That's what caused the problem because I was going to come down to Boca Chica, but I couldn't do 2 trips. So anyway,
Yep.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
Did you see my
So,
asbestos suit that I ordered for the shareholder meeting?
oh,
I've
really?
got like a whole big flame. I'm just joking. No, but I
Yeah.
posted a picture today on X and I said,
Yeah.
this is my suit for the shareholder meeting. Because if Elon doesn't get the pay package and they don't go to Texas, man, it's going to be fireworks there. So yeah, it'll be crazy.
Yeah, and
time.
we will be there together.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is
So,
true.
yeah, we will be reporting before, kind of during, and immediately after.
Exactly. Yep. All right. So everybody enjoy. And then, of course, we're at the Tesla takeover in Michigan the very next day. So we are.
Yeah, it's a
world
crazy,
travelers.
crazy. Yeah, exactly. So I drove all the way up here to Michigan. I made the crazy trip from Florida to Boca Chica and drove back up here to Michigan. Fortunately, I had Anna as my co-pilot and FSD,
Right.
so between the two, we were able to do it nonstop.
Yeah.
It was like 34 hours.
Oof.
So-
Oh,
oh yeah, it was like woo. It was
Man.
long. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, Scott, do you want to talk about the launch? And you were like, I'm on
Plus,
the
we
road.
got we caught a nail somewhere along the way as well. So
Yeah,
I just got
right.
that tire. Yeah.
Jeez. Well, man. Well, anyway, you made it. And so we will be up in Muskegon and hopefully
Yes.
the weather will be beautiful and we will have a great time. And so everybody come and say hi at the shareholder meeting too. So wherever you catch us and we will say hello. All right. Well, we will bid you after an hour plus, we will bid you a fond adieu till the next video and see you folks. Bye-bye.